and 572-0215. Rev-Up St. Lucia, the alpha of radio.
Join the United Workers' Party this and every Thursday on Rev-Up St. Lucia 97.1 FM for an educational and informative program, Meet the Opposition. Participate in exciting discussions from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Be in the know every Thursday on Rev-Up St. Lucia 97.1 from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
It's now time for Meet the Opposition, hosted by Lenard Spider Montoute. Mr. Montoute, welcome once again and good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning to you, Andre. Good morning to our listeners and viewers, I would say. And so let me just say that I hope that you all had a very enjoyable carnival. And those of you who are not revelers, I hope you had a restful weekend or whatever it is you chose to do during that weekend, that you were successful in doing so. And now let's get back to reality. We forgot our problems, some of us, we danced, we sang, but the reality is still with us, and that is what we have to face. That is what we're going to talk about this morning. On this morning's program, very shortly, I will have Senator Dominic Fede, who is one of the deputy political leaders of the United Workers' Party, and in fact, the endorsed candidate for ancillary canneries. He'll be joining us. And the main topic for today is one of the topics that those who should actually have the responsibility for it are sidestepping it. It is what you would say the elephant in the room, one that has not gone away and will not go away until and unless we deal with it. And so on Meet the Opposition this morning, we're going to deal with the issue, the ugly, unfortunate issue of crime.
Just before you continue, just a little elucidation. Can you tell us how the system works? I mean, you have a number of deputy leaders. How does that work?
Okay, in the United Workers' Party, you have two sets of leadership, so to speak. The administrative leadership, which is the chairman, he's deputy chairperson, and you have, the executive, all right? And you have the administrative head, like secretary, general secretary, and all of that, treasurer, and so on. Then you have the political leadership of the party, which is the political leader, and two deputy political leaders. Now, I know that in the St. Lucia Labour Party, for instance, they have a first and second. Lately, I've heard people make mention of first and second in the UWP, but according to our constitution, there are two deputy political leaders. And so they form the political leadership. So matters to do with the actual politics, they deal with that. Matters to do with the running of the party, the chairman and his deputies and his executive deal with that. Of course, the political leader has his two deputies and the other 14 candidates. They form the actual political, the leadership, so to speak, of the party.
So does it automatically mean that, say, for example, something happens to the political leader, right? And you have a first deputy and a second deputy. Does it work in that order? That
well,
if anything
in the immediate aftermath,
right,
the deputy will take over, but they will eventually go to a national council, island council, or a convention to elect a new leader eventually. Okay. But the other person the deputy will step in and hold on until.
So why do you need two deputies?
Well, there's a lot of work to be done for support to the leader. You have the two deputies, and I know in the UWP, the leader normally assigns different responsibilities to the deputies. So one might be responsible for mobilization, the other one, may be responsible for, let's say, PR and communication and things like that. So they assign different duties to them. Sometimes they both collaborate on everything, but they provide support to the political leader.
So it's not anything like having, power which is on par with the official leader of the party. No, the leader is the leader. All right.
Even when we form the government, the leader becomes the prime minister. That's not according to the constitution, but our party's constitution, national constitution, but our party's constitution. It's understood that the leader will be the prime minister, and in his absence, one of the deputies will act. If they are absent, then the prime minister will choose from the other elected members to act. And so that is how it works, And so the two deputy political leaders, everyone knows that Honorable Alan Michael Chasney is the leader. The two deputy political leaders are Guy Joseph and Dominic Faley. Okay. So
just a quick little question again. I don't know if you want to answer that one.
If I can.
Yes, if you can. Going into the next general elections, and if your party were to lose the elections, what would happen at that point in time now? Would there be need for a change in leadership?
Well, that's the party will have to determine that. I mean, depends on a lot of things. The willingness of the leader himself to continue. Because what normally happens, according to our constitution, which actually happened last election, the leader submits his resignation immediately
after an election.
Yeah, and the party will decide, look, we'll accept or we will not, we'll ask him to hold on until convention or whatever they decide to do.
So once the party loses an election, the leader automatically sends in a resignation letter.
Yes,
okay, I got you.
And so then the party will decide, look, we'll continue with you or we'll change course or, whatever the case might be. If you are willing to get back in, you can put your name back in the fray at convention in the hope that you'll be re-elected as leader. So that's the way it works in the UWP.
Okay.
And, I am hoping that the UWP will form the next government and that there will be no question as to who the Prime Minister will be. I mean, we know that in the case of the SLP, they will put in 15 candidates and have 2 so-called independent. And like I asked in the last election, what if there was a dead heat, 9-8? What would be the posture of the independents? So who would become the Prime Minister? You see, these are the things that we should not be gambling with. It should be clear-cut because, okay, yes, you may say you want to support the Labour Party, but what if the prospect exists that Richard Frederick can become the Prime Minister? You don't have to answer that one, Andre. Can become the Prime Minister. Would you be comfortable with that prospect? That there is a 9-8 and Richard being among the 9, say he wants to be Prime Minister, Labour want him to be in office, have no choice but to bow, to give in, or if Stephenson King, for that matter, does, and that's where you can have chaos, But if in the case of the UWP, if the leader does not win, then you have the deputy political leaders and so on, or we go to, convention or national and island council meeting. In the case of the SLP, these people, according to the Prime Minister, are not members of the party. So, those wins, that's what I spoke about in the last election when we going into under-table deals. And you do not know what the possible outcome will be. So that's gambling. And we don't gamble with the future of our country.
Well, here's an interesting thing. The Prime Minister recently said that the Labour Party will win all 17 seats.
Yeah, well,
so how could that be?
I've said I'm making people lose their deposit already and I lost the election.
Yeah, but how could the Labour Party win all 17 seats when you have 2 independents?
Exactly. Now, and on one hand, you're saying that they are not members of your party.
Yes.
They are independent, but then you're going to win all 17 seats. You see, now that's the thing about when people are not open and honest. That's what happens. Eventually, inevitably rather, the truth comes out. You cannot suppress the truth, Andre. It comes out one way or the other. Whether it's through Freudian slip, whether it's through, inevitably the light shining on the reality, something will happen. Even you will bring out the truth yourself. So we know that they're playing games with us. They're not being honest, straightforward, and open with us, and so on. Because Stephenson King never declared that he was going to join the SLP after a general election. Now, why is that important? There are some people who want nothing to do with the SLP, but don't mind voting for you. Would they still vote for you if they know that you're going to join the SLP? So that's a form of deception in itself when you're not clear-cut as to what exactly your position is. But the good thing about it this time around is the facts are in the open. You fooled the people one time, they did not know, it wasn't their fault, but this time, there's no excuse for the people to make that mistake again. They know now, and when people talk about patriots and being in the interest of the country and all of that, we know all of that is all self-serving, and none of that was genuine. I always knew, and if you go back to the tapes, Andre, you would hear me saying so during the last campaign, But, sometimes people don't listen, sometimes people learn the hard way. Sometimes we have to feel before we hear, So I think St. Lucians have gotten the message. They have understood what it is about. And St. Lucians have unraveled the bluffers on the other side and what they're all about now. I think St. Lucians have. And so Andre, what we don't like to talk about, but is with us, the issue of crime. Finally, Andre, the Prime Minister made a statement following a murder. You know, a few days ago, a couple of weeks ago, we had a spate of murders. Some say 10, some say 12. By my count, it's probably closer to 12 people who passed away in the space of 2 weeks. Not passed away, were murdered. Let me not use euphemisms that are not accurately reflecting the reality. In the space of 2 weeks, we had that number, and we heard nothing. Okay, now, I like to offer excuses for my government, Andre. My government was very busy, Andre. We had a president from Nigeria visiting us, so, I mean, who has time to go and talk about who died and all that kind of thing? So my government was too busy to deal with that. Subsequently, we went into carnival. As usual, as always, it seems the trend these days that whenever we have a festival, or Independence, Easter, carnival, and so on, it comes with murders. But that's not that bad because, you know, it is all masked and suppressed by the festivity and the fete, because I don't have time to hear who died, who I'm enjoying myself, I'm singing, I'm dancing. But okay, it's all over now. The carnival is over now. What is the aftermath of the carnival? We had a number of murders, Andre. And I want to, you see, I'm a person who counts blessings. I don't only complain and mourn, I count blessings. The blessings that I'm counting right now, Andre, is we had probably, four or five murders in the last week, okay, which encompassed the carnival weekend.
And I believe there was a shooting last night as well. Have you heard about that?
Right, in Sarat there was a shooting.
Right. Mm.
But fortunately, Andre, that's the blessing I'm talking about. Out of the many shootings that were there, that took place, only a few people died. Because, Andre, had everyone who was shot in the last week passed away, we would probably be looking at another dozen people who died, you know. And these are the things now, that is serious, Andre, because you're talking about a luck and chance thing, okay? The very same bullet that hit a guy in the finger in one case, that hit a guy in the arm, that hit a guy in the leg, could have hit him square in the head, could have gone through his heart, and that same person would have been dead. It's just a question of luck, a question of chance that it wasn't so. But we have to be concerned, and we're talking about we don't talk about the 4 people who died, that's nothing. But let us look at the actual situation that exists. Do you feel safe in your country?
You said that's nothing? Explain.
Well, Andre, how is it something when there's no outrage, there's no comment?
Oh, that's what you're talking about.
Okay. You know what I'm saying? So that's, I mean, okay, Andre, I come here every day, Andre. You never say to me, boy, lovely weather, like they do when I go to England, when I go to Germany, when I go to the States. Oh, lovely weather, blue sky, sunny weather. You don't. You know why, Andre? Because every day in St. Lucia, almost every day, it is partly cloudy and sunny. Okay, that's standard. You wake up tomorrow morning, you know it's going to be partly cloudy and sunny. The only time you, Andre, will take a subject on the weather is when there's a hurricane, there's a storm. The only time. Okay? But the same is with our government. They don't talk about it because it's a normal thing. Because you see, it's boring, you know, come and talk about the weather in St. Lucia. It's like the same thing you're saying every day. It's boring to talk about who died, because people die every other day in St. Lucia. That's standard, that's normal. So not even the people responsible for crime, like the Prime Minister or the Minister of Crime Prevention, would say anything. Not even them. But interestingly, strangely, the Prime Minister made a statement this week about after one of the murders. So was that a storm? Was that a hurricane? Because Andre, that's the only time you'll talk about the weather. Why? You see, and we have to look at those things closely to understand what is taking place in our country. My information, Andre, is that individual is close to the Prime Minister. Okay? The other things I've heard and been made to understand about the individuals, I will not comment on. Okay? And talking about that, you know, I listen to other talk shows, Andre. I was listening to Newsspin, and a caller to Newsspin, you know, had me cracking, you know, cracking up. He called and said about the guy who died, and he too was complaining about the fact that, okay, there's a lady who died 7 months pregnant, not a comment. From any of the people responsible for crime, and you have a lot of them in government. You have Attorney General, you have Minister of Justice, Minister of Home Affairs, Minister of Crime Prevention, Minister of National Security. Not a comment from any of them. And there was this young guy who just graduated on Thursday. By the weekend, life was snuffed out of him. 18-year-old. No comment. We had his father. I can only imagine how proud this man was. You know, the man going for a haircut because he wanted to look fresh and excited and everything. Going and get a haircut to go to his daughter's graduation. You know, Andre, when your child graduates, when your child gets married, well, these are grand occasions for you as a parent. These are the moments of pride for you, you know. So, you know, I don't care what's happening in your life. That's the time when you feel happiness and accomplishment and you know all of that. The man was gunned down on his way to the salon. You understand what I'm saying? Not a word. There were occasions when you had 2 and 3 people being killed at once. Not a word. But on this occasion, the Prime Minister found cause to speak. He spoke out. And so the guy was complaining about that as well and saying all of those people died, you didn't say anything and so on. So the guy said, well, the guy is a small businessman and a dealer. I will not say what kind of dealer. Okay? So the host, for the same reason why I did not say what kind of dealer, I said, hey, hello, you cannot substantiate what you say. Andre, you not believe what the guy responded. But I know Tim, because it was Newspin. I know Tim. I just buy from him. So I don't know if it's bread. I don't know if it's bread or whatever. He just buy from him. But like I mean that honestly, Andre, I don't know, like I mean,
police going to arrest him.
Tim himself had to crack up, you know, because you couldn't expect an answer like that, you know, and so on. And the guy sounded so genuine and simplistic, you know, like he's just stating a matter of fact, you know, and so on. Now that tells us a lot. We don't want to talk about it openly, and so on. That tells us a lot in terms of, you know, where we are in this country and why we are where we are in this country. Because you see, when you start to look at networks, it explains a lot of things. But before I go into that, Andre, back to the carnival. I'm a Catholic. I was born Catholic. That's the religion I still follow. And so, but you know, sometimes I have some disappointments with my church. Now, if you're not a Catholic, don't join me, Andre, because I have a right to speak on my church, yeah. And sometimes they disappoint me. Like there are certain issues they do not speak up on, and so on. But I was happy when Bishop Malze spoke about the Bam Bam Wall, Andre. No. That's another thing, Andre. I know a lot of you all like, but you all pretend like you don't want to talk about it, you know. But the Bam Bam Wall. People who are in the business of morality will have an issue with it, okay? Like the bishop. So he spoke about it. And when you consider the doctrine of the Catholic Church, who the bishop is and so on, whether you like it or not, you have to grant him that right. And that's an expectation that he would speak on it. But what my disappointment was, you know, apparently there was a minister of government seated in the congregation, you know, and it was St. Benedict's Church, which is in Castries South, so you can well guess who that was. And if our guess is correct, that is the Minister for Culture and the Minister for Tourism. He starts with an apology, Andre. Well, I'm sorry, the minister is here with us today and so on, and I'm not, you know, Andre, you see that kind of political correctness? There's no place for it in a society with so many ills that have to be corrected. Wrong is wrong, right is right. If something is not right and you genuinely believe it's not right, just speak up against it. It doesn't matter if it's Andre Paul, if it's Spider, or if it's Philip. You understand what I'm saying? Say what you have to say. Don't start with an apology. And that is the thing, because we dilute everything. We dilute everything based on who it is. And rather than let whoever is responsible feel the brunt and the outrage of our sentiments, we come to pacify it with some kind of apologetic language and so on. And that I have a problem with. As a leader, speak out if you're convicted about what you're speaking on, you know, and that's my criticism of my bishop. So, and that goes beyond the church. A lot of leaders in society, even when they're on the spot and they're forced to speak about something, they water it down, they pacify it by all the kind of nebulous language and apologetic language and all of that kind of thing.
But let me ask you something, because I remember one time I was at a church service. I was actually invited to that particular denomination. And while I was there, the pastor, right, I was there as well, there was a Calypsonian who was there as well, all right? And I remember the pastor was speaking and he was talking about talk show hosts and so on. He was talking about the Calypsonians. He even said, come and sing for God instead. So I know that was meant for me and the guy. So I'm just going back to what you were saying a while ago. Do you think that this is a proper thing to do? I mean, you have somebody who's a guest.
Well, it can be seen as inappropriate, Andre, because while you're a talk show host, you're there in your private capacity and so on. But a government minister is slightly different, though, and you don't have a responsibility per se to have to sing in a choir or anything like that. You can sing where you want to sing and so on. But the Bam Bam Wall being painted, being stairs being put for the ladies to climb onto it and all of that, Andre, the person sitting there that's responsible for that, because that costs money. Okay, and that money came from the government. You understand what I'm saying? Whether directly or indirectly, might tell me events committee or whatever it is.
So let me ask you, do you feel that there's something wrong with the Bam Bam Wall in and of itself? Do you think that there's something wrong with that?
Okay, let me start by saying, as far as I know, the people have broken no law of the land. But for me, I think it is vulgar. Okay, I think it's a little extreme. While I understand what carnival is about, I find it to be a little extreme, that kind of vulgarity, that kind of exposure. And for those guys who think otherwise, that's their right to. But I usually ask them the question, how proud would you feel to see your wife or your daughter on that wall, or worse yet, your mother on that wall? Now, if you have a problem with them being on the wall, there's a problem with it. You understand what I'm saying? So I will tell you, I can do without it. I find it vulgar, or to say the least. I find it a little extreme, as we are going overboard. Our guest has just arrived. Welcome, Dominic. I find it a little extreme and so on. How now? There are those who get their kicks off it and so on. And I do not come a little closer. I do not necessarily say, I'm not going into the issue of right or wrong, Andre, necessarily, but I just think that it's, because you see, and if you want to say to me that, okay, carnival is an exception, or we go beyond the normal and do things that we don't normally do,
But wouldn't you agree that all what's taking place on that wall there is nothing different to what happens on the road? I don't see the difference.
No, Andre, you'll not go to Castries.
What's different about
Let me tell you what's different. You'll not go to Castries this morning and see a woman with a G-string bending over and winding her butt in the boulevard.
Yeah, but at Carnival we like it, as a matter of fact.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I know Carnival is about revelries and revelry and all of the bacchanal, but Andre, I find that one a little extreme, to go on a wall and bend over and that kind of thing.
So we're not going to truck now.
But it's a show. Now you see me. You asked me. I give you my personal opinion. For me, now that show these people put on, now you notice what they do now is they go and get their butts made. How they call it, the BB, whatever it is, the butt enhancement and so on. Spend money doing that and all of this kind of thing. I don't know how healthy that is and so on. And then you come and show off something that is artificial, And so I don't know. And let me just say to you, Andre, can I ask you a personal question?
Sure. I was just, your colleague was trying to communicate something to me that I didn't quite understand what he was saying. But I guess you can write it, Dominic, if you don't mind. Yes, yeah.
So I will get the footage of one of the ladies on the wall shaking up her behind, bending over for the cameras and everything on the Bam Bam Wall and so on. And then she does a good job of it, and tomorrow you have the most respect for her, right, Andre?
Well, yes, because that's what the carnival is all about.
You respect her for that?
It's back at that.
Okay. Yeah, well, okay. So, I don't know. Like I said to you, it's nothing illegal. If that's their pleasure, I will not move to stop it. but it's not for me. I find it vulgar. That's me. And you see, the thing about it is, Andre, I've reached a stage in my life where I say it how I see it. I say how I feel. That doesn't mean to say, Andre, because I do not like coffee, that you should not drink coffee. I'm just telling you, while I like the smell of coffee, I don't like coffee. Now, am I advocating that they put a ban on coffee? No, you understand, but that's just my feeling. But so much for the Bam Bam Wall. Andre, I am talking about while we're listening to the calypsos, we're dancing to the soca, and we're watching the Bam Bams on the wall, St. Lucians are dying. Okay? And we have predominantly gun violence, but unfortunately, a young man who's a national footballer who played for Grosile lost his life by being stabbed during all the celebrations that just took place. That wasn't sufficient to warrant a statement from the Prime Minister, who's Minister of National Security. By the way, I saw a statement posted by the Minister of Sports on that. But then, even then, you can tell there's no outrage. It's just almost like a matter of duty and so on. But it was good. While I heard criticisms of the Prime Minister for having spoken out, it was good that he spoke out. But I too will join the people in saying that it should not have to be only when it hit home that you speak out. Every life is important in this country. And not because you probably feel immune or exempted or in some way protected from the violence that is taking place, that you should care so little, like we have seen from our government. And so I have two reasons why the Prime Minister probably spoke out. Is because, of course, there's increasing number of people being outspoken about the fact that the government is not saying anything with all the crime that's taking place. Number two, that's the one that's pressure. Two, we are approaching an election, and that is the only time when some politicians care. And three, on that occasion, from what I have understood, been made to understand, it was someone who was close and connected to the Prime Minister of St. Lucia. So he spoke. And what did he say, Andre? That's the other thing. Even when he spoke, what did he say? First of all, a very feeble, lacking in conviction, lame speech that he made on the issue of crime. Okay, the usual thing, and I can give you a speech, Andre, now on the situation on crime. And if you go back, you can take Dr. Anthony, Sir John Compton, Stephen King, Alan Chasney, any of them, and you will find some of those words in their speech. So I know there are some standard things that public officials say. But sometimes when they say it, when Alan Chasney says it, when John Compton says it, even Kenny Anthony, you can tell there's some conviction, there's some seriousness about it. And I listened again to that same talk show I'm talking about, I can say, Newspin, where he featured the speech, and he also posted, allow his listeners to listen to a speech by the Prime Minister of Jamaica. And if you hear the Prime Minister of Jamaica, the usual thing, but making it absolutely clear. Yeah? Pardon?
I'm saying that I think Andre should have that clip.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And, well, if he has it, Andre, and you can play it, you play it, but I'm just making reference to it to say that he was very emphatic, He was very serious, and he spoke in a tone that indicated to the criminals, that he was not joking about this. That is how a leader speaks, if you're not compromised. Because Holness, Prime Minister Holness, spoke about the gun traffickers, the hitmen that are hired to kill people, the people who are committing the crime. He spoke to them directly. Now, if that is your people, if you're connected to them, you don't speak that way. Okay, now you can take it to mean what you want.
Mm-hmm.
You will not speak that way because you are connected. These are your people. You cannot speak that way because you are compromised. But he was able to do it, and that I respected. But our Prime Minister spoke, and before long, he did what is expected of him, the opposition, Andre. Oh, a surrogate of the opposition had a podcast, which I don't know about. I've not heard it, and I'm not saying there wasn't. But even if there was, everyone in St. Lucia, every other person in St. Lucia supports UWP or SLP. So every SLP who says something, I should hold Philip Pierre responsible for it. and the St. Lucia Labour Party responsible for it. Anyway, some surrogate of the United Workers' Party had a podcast, and instead of this and that and that, well, you want the person to, instead of this and that, to say so and so, but you, the Minister of National Security, the Prime Minister of the country, you have nothing to say. You understand? And even now that you have taken the opportunity to say something, that is what you come and talk about, address the criminals, address the crime. Okay? Do not look for scapegoats. That scapegoating has to stop in this country. It's either you are here to do the job, and you want to take responsibility for the job you're supposed to do, or get out of the way. Okay? I have asked you on many occasions, Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre, fire the Minister of National Security. He's a disaster, he's a disgrace, he's an abject failure. Fire him. By the way, that happens to be you. You know? And that's the best favor you could do. And I will tell you that if you do what I advise you to do, when we are reviewing your tenure as Prime Minister, I will have no doubt and I will not be surprised if that ranks as the best decision you've made as a Prime Minister. Because you are not doing St. Lucia any service by being Minister of National Security. Under your watch, I will remind you again, under your watch, we have set 2 national records when it comes to homicides in this country. Okay? You continue to preside over the highest rate of homicide, highest rate of murders in this country. And you have admitted that you do not have the answers. You have thrown your hands in the air and asked for people to give you ideas. Okay? You have said you're not a police, so as a result, your hands are tied, you can't do anything. You have actually admitted that you are a failure and you do not have what it takes to do the job. So why have you taken up that responsibility? Do not forget, as Prime Minister, it is your responsibility to put a cabinet together. And yes, the Constitution calls for a Minister of Finance and an Attorney General. But outside of that, there are a number of ministries that are appointed. Among important ministries, you cannot tell me, especially the environment that we exist in these days throughout the region, that you would not think of national security as a very important portfolio to our field. You, upon announcing your cabinet, never announced a Minister for National Security. It's when people started asking, what about the portfolio of national security? It's like an afterthought. You appointed yourself as Minister of National Security. And when you look at all what transpired immediately upon you assuming office when it relates to crime, in terms of the scanners at the port, in terms of the disbanding of the K9 unit and so on, it clearly tells me you were the worst and the last person who should have taken up that responsibility on the portfolio for national security. So, while we still have a chance, this week marks 4 years since you have had us in that predicament. Give us a break for a change, because the damage that you're doing, unlike the damage that you're doing to the economy that can recover, the damage that you're doing as Minister of National Security has a finality about it that is irreversible. That is the loss of life. You are responsible for the wanton loss of life that is going unchecked in this country, where criminals feel all they need is a gun and they can shoot and kill and maim St. Lucians, and that there's very little that is done about it because there's a government that is weak on the issue of crime. And don't come and talk about anybody asking that there be no crime in this country. No one has said so. Okay? Wherever there are human beings, people will engage in wrongdoing. But it is for those of us, the majority, who are not involved in criminal activity, to be able to live in a society where we feel that we are not under siege, okay, or held hostage by criminals, which has happened and is happening in St. Lucia. Okay? There are some people who told you that they did not go to some fetes because of fear of crime. There are people who would tell you that if you fought, they were under curfew because of crime. Okay? Criminals have more control over this country than you do as Prime Minister of this country. Take stock of that. So let's talk about crime now.
Just a quick little
Well, I
question.
think, Spider, you've already wrapped up the entire show.
Sorry, but I have a quick little question. We've often heard you speak about this letter that was written to the Minister for National Security concerning suggestions made by the opposition as regards addressing crime and so on. Now, I've never heard about the contents of that letter.
Okay.
Would you like to share some of these suggestions? Because the Prime Minister keeps saying, well, I've provided all what the police need, so it's up to them now to do their work because I've given them everything that they need already.
Okay, well,
so,
Andre, I'll pull a Philip JP on you. I'm not a leader in the party. Okay? I have Dominic is the leader in the party. So Dominic did not know why I brought him in.
So I didn't. I don't have the exact copy of the letter on me, but what I do have is an actual coverage of the letter from St. Lucia Times, and this is St. Lucia Times back in August 28th, 2023. And they published a story that they wrote on the said letter. And basically it says opposition leader Alan Shastney has reiterated a call for the government to establish a crime command center, declaring that criminal activity threatens citizens. And basically he went on to state that, look, crime was overwhelming the country in the same way that COVID pandemic had been overwhelming the country. And that in the same way that we had a very urgent daily focus on what was taking place within the various response efforts or activities related to COVID-19, that we needed in the same manner to mobilize the country. One of the great things, and I happen to have headed the command center while the former United Workers' Party administration presided over the affairs of the country. And one of the things I learned is the need for various agencies in government to work together. This is beyond the police by itself. The police needs to work with so many different agencies: education, community development, housing. If you're going to have a comprehensive and holistic approach towards fighting the crime situation in the country, like we did with COVID, one ministry, the health ministry, COVID was beyond them because there's so many different components of that fight which required the efforts and the resources and the input of different ministries. So we had something called NEMAC, where when we wanted to make decisions as it pertains to limiting the activities in the country, especially when it came to disrupting the economy, if we were, like for example, we were ending commercial activity, you had to bring the Chamber of Commerce. It had implications for the St. Lucia Hotel and Tourism Association. As just two of the main private sector bodies, for example, you had to use church leaders to spread the message, because they're very influential as well in their churches every Sunday and Saturdays, where they're talking to thousands of people, churchgoers. So we use the churches as a means of communication, but they also had significant input. So there was a comprehensive approach to dealing with COVID. And the leader of the opposition suggested to the Prime Minister that in the same way, we could actually fight back in a more meaningful way if we were able to mobilize the country in that manner. That was the essence of his letter to the Prime Minister, yeah. But you can read it for your listeners with more time, but there's just so much to go through here today that I thought that I would, truncate.
Okay. Andre, I also remember that the leader of the opposition did indicate that the opposition was prepared to sit in a national consultation on crime to offer their recommendations, apart from putting it in writing to the Prime Minister. They were prepared to come to a consultation on crime and everything like that. And the Prime Minister kept up that rebuff. First of all, he said that he threw the letter in a bin. That's a famous statement that he made. Then he was saying, the opposition is not serious about, this kind of thing. And rather than, take on the opposition with their offer, he kept saying that the opposition, was happy about crime, was going to bed praying for crime to take place and so on, just because they were highlighting the issue on crime. Now, the thing about it, Andre, it has proven itself not to be so. That whole approach of suppressing information on what is happening. Even if you suppress the information on crime, that does not suppress crime. The crime continues to escalate in St. Lucia, and we have seen that. So trying to pretend like it does not happen, it is not there, it's not taking place, has not served us well. Let us deal with it head on. Let us attack, And I want to say this, Andre, I give full credit to the opposition to offer And even after the Prime Minister publicly rejected their offer, when crime surged once more, the opposition again came forward to make the offer. Why don't you accept that offer when you are publicly admitting that you don't have the answer? You understand what I'm saying? Because the problem
and actually inviting suggestions.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
that's what he did.
But the thing about it, we would be foolhardy to wish crime upon any country, much less the country that we're living in. That would be undermining ourselves. This is where we live. This is where we raise our families. We have a stake.
This is where we have, most of us have businesses.
Correct.
Businesses that many of which are related to tourism.
Correct. So. And so the crime situation threatens, Andre, to devour our entire society if we don't get on top of it. And we need to be very mindful, and we need to be stronger in fighting it. I wish you would play that clip that Spider referenced about Andrew Holness. This is Spider's show, and I don't want to direct the show. But I think that for emphasis...
While you're a guest, you have shares.
So, would you like me to play it?
Go ahead.
All right. Let me be clear. The government will eliminate and eradicate every single gang in Jamaica. Let me be clear. Every contract killer, we will find you. Everyone who is importing guns into Jamaica, we will find you. I want to be very clear and transparent.
Now, that is the leader of a country that is sending a signal to the entire society, to businesses, to importers of gun, illegal and legal, to gun users, to illegal people with illegal possession of guns. Contract killers. And he's making it absolutely clear. Prior to this, I remember watching a video where he was speaking at the opening of an infrastructure project. And he said that in the past in Jamaica, that criminals had used contracts to gain financial resources to reinvest back into criminal activity. And he was very clear. He said, you, the criminal element of our society, we are not going to allow you this time to undermine this project or to be anywhere near this project. And he made it absolutely clear that there were no contracts. Now, there's a big rumor in St. Lucia.
Explain when you say contract. What are you talking about?
It was an infrastructure project.
Like a house or a road or something.
That he was, there was the opening, the sword turning ceremony. And in his speech as Prime Minister, he said that we will not give any criminals, we will make sure that in the tendering process, that the criminals will not benefit financially from the construction of this project by any means. Now, in St. Lucia, there are question marks as to who built custody suites, for example. Now, Andre, it is all well and good for you in 4 years, and you say it once, that you have a zero tolerance for crime. And I'm referring to our Prime Minister in St. Lucia. I recall being in the Senate and the opposition in the lower house and in the upper house. We sent a very strong message to the government to say to them, look, you cannot go ahead and remove all the offenses that or expunge the records of people who had committed petty offenses, mind you, during COVID. You're sending the wrong signal. This was one of the first things that this government did when coming into office. When this happens, Andre, what it does is that clearly it sends the wrong signal to people. One may argue that these were petty crimes. But, Andre, you have to send a clear signal, as Andrew Holness just did, that your government is very serious about fighting crime. Jamaica, by the way, they are enjoying a 43% decline in homicide rates. And this is the best homicide rate that they have had since 1990. So that's quite a while ago. But if you look at some of the things that they have done, they have been very hawkish and aggressive on closing down sections of crime hotspots wherever the data or the intelligence suggests. They have declared war, as you have seen from the head of the country. And this is instructive in that a prime minister, when you assume that position, you are the protector in chief, much less when you assume the portfolio of national security minister, of which our prime minister has been holding for the last 4 years. You can't say that your job is just to give the police its resources. You require a lot more than that. When someone gets shot or when someone gets stabbed, as the young man did during the carnival festivities, it's really too late for you to do anything to stem the crime situation. It has to be a more comprehensive national strategic plan that the entire country is part of and feel like they are stakeholders, every layer of your society, so that we together prevent crime from taking place or reduce the amount of crime from taking place. But what we've been doing and what the Prime Minister, everything that he has done is all to do with crime response. So I give the police some vehicles. I give the police bulletproof vests. I give the police this and I give the police that. But that's not enough. Where are the social programs? Where are the programs to eradicate poverty? Where are the programs to give young people hope in communities? Where are the housing programs to make young people feel that they have an opportunity right where they live and they don't need to come and steal what belongs to Andre, for example? Or where are the programs to make people feel that they can make it in St. Lucia just as well as anybody else? And so a lot of our people, they feel very boxed in by the system. This creates a level of frustration among a number of young people, and people respond differently to a lot of that. So there's no escaping, Andre, from the need for us to deal with the economic challenges that we face. Household income, single mothers who are going to the tourism sector and working and leaving kids at home unsupervised, or police officers who are working, long, strenuous hours, who are at work and perhaps not having a father figure in families and leaving mothers alone to raise young children. All of these things we must consider and we must have as part of a plan if we're going to respond to this effectively.
Let me ask you a question, because last week the Minister for Crime Prevention was here on Meet the Minister, and I was asking him about his ministry, and he was saying the ministry is more about soft power. Okay, in other words, rehabilitation and so on, that sort of thing. That's what the ministry is mainly all about. So what is your take on this?
Which ministry is it?
For crime prevention. It's more about soft power, right? Rehabilitation.
What did he mean by that?
Yeah, rehabilitating people, working with them, especially those maybe who are incarcerated, and to assist them in reintegrating into society and so on.
Yeah,
so
but
what is
rehabilitation
your
doesn't mean prevention. Rehabilitation
is after the fact.
It's after the fact.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean...
So what do we do to prevent crime?
You have recidivism. You have recidivism. So if that helps in reducing recidivism, well, that's a good thing, don't you think?
Of course, and we will support any of those initiatives.
That's what I was just going to ask you.
We remain very deeply concerned when, for example, there are videos going around of the Prime Minister who said that, you don't need the scanners at customs and the dogs, for example, as a means of preventing guns from coming into the country. He said that either or can work. And he was trying to justify the need for the government to disband the K9 unit because he was making a point that it was too expensive. Now, our take in the opposition is that no amount of money is too expensive to prevent young people from getting shot, to prevent guns from coming into the country and going into the hands of, I would say, vulnerable young people in our country. So, for me, I take the view that I'm not sure whether the scanners at customs are working now. I know that the K9 unit does not exist because the only dog that we had, we know what has become the fate of that dog. So crime prevention, when you say to me that a ministry is responsible for crime prevention, I'm thinking of what are you doing to prevent crime? And to me, it's a lot more than rehabilitation. To me, it's going into communities. What's going on with community policing? What are the initiatives under that plan? Is the police force going into communities and building relationships? This is a program that established many, many years ago. You know who come to mind?
Peanut?
No. Female.
Frances?
No. Miss Branford.
Okay.
Many years ago,
Yeah.
when she was spearheading that community policing department.
Yes.
And you know, you saw her work. She was very active. She was in there, going into inner city communities that had issues where vulnerable, at-risk youth were very prevalent. But you saw the effort. And if you correlate what was happening back then and look at the homicide rates, is it any accident that it was lower than it is now? My information suggests that we are about 41.7 for every 100,000. That's about the murder rate of St. Lucia, which makes us like the highest in the OECS and one of the highest in the world. It's just too intense. The crime situation, the stats don't paint a very good picture.
But let me just say
we
this,
have
Dominic.
to do everything possible to prevent crime from happening, to secure our borders, to make sure that we stop the guns from coming in, to make sure that the penalties are very stiff, that people will think twice of importing guns in a barrel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I what I want to do is, quite from expressing our views here, from time to time I peruse the social media and I see some pieces that are written by ordinary individuals from the society and so on. Two came to my attention over the last couple of days, and I just want to read the two. The first one is a little lengthy, but if you'll bear with me, let me just read it. In response to the Prime Minister's address on crime that came after the gentleman called Kwame in Masha was gunned down, the individual wrote, and I will not call names, the individual wrote, "Sorry, Mr. PM, resources alone will not solve crime," similar to what you were saying, Dominic. There must be a three-pronged approach. Number one, policy, strategy, and legislation. Number two, social and economic intervention, and that would lend to the prevention. And number three, resources and training. When I say legislation, I do not mean legislation to have designated any part of the country as an escalated crime area. These kinds of labels are not only detrimental to our communities and our people, but also regionally and internationally, hence impacting our tourist industry. It is obvious that the Prime Minister's administration has no clue about the repercussions of these labels on our already fragile tourism industry. I say that because the Prime Minister, in his latest address on crime, reiterated that legislation which placed that label on Viewfort South, saying that it is flexible enough to be placed on any other area. He yet again tried to distract the public by saying that the UWP is politicizing crime. Well, Mr. Prime Minister, under your watch, crime has become a political issue. First, you rejected the opposition's offer to have a national, multifaceted approach to the development of policy and strategy for crime fighting, saying that you threw the offer in the garbage. Second, under your watch, crime has become a threat to our national security, and you have no answer, not even a hint for that. Our people, as well as our visitors, are at risk. You, Mr. Prime Minister, are ultimately responsible. Third, you have questionable characters by your own party's pronouncements in your cabinet, allegedly emboldened criminals. Fourth, you have disbanded one of the best crime prevention interventions the United Workers' Party had implemented, that is the K9 unit.
My information is, Spider, on the K9 unit is that it is now in Jamaica, and it's doing amazing work, and that is the K9 unit contract where the Prime Minister cancelled it and thought they were paying too much money for it.
Yeah. Okay, and to compound that, under your watch, Officer Tyson, PC 642, was killed. Under your watch, the detection scanners at the main port of entry drank water and drowned. You made mention of the scanners, Dominic. Fourth, or that'll be fifth, your government facilitated the Rovergate scandal, thereby normalizing white-collar crime. Fifth, you have done nothing to investigate the allegations on the CIP money, which is probably over US $1 billion, and the list goes on. Mr. Prime Minister, why should crime not be politicized? It's like saying crime should not be a national issue. Mr. Prime Minister, if you don't want crime to be a national issue or politicized, manage it. That is what you are elected to do. Now, that statement came from an individual on social media. Here, another one. This one is much shorter. I'll just want to read through it as well. Here, the person is saying, the Prime Minister's speech is all rubbish. He is condemning the crime, fine. He is giving the police resources, fine. But you threw the suggestion of the opposition United Workers' Party, by extension about half of St. Lucia, in the garbage bin, and now you call in on all St. Lucians, including the half whose suggestions you rejected, to help fight crime. I am not the smartest person, but how does that make any sense? Now, these are the kind of reactions you're getting from St. Lucians towards the Prime Minister and his speech that he made on crime. Now, if you're serious, every opportunity you get, opposition, this week, Andre, marks 4 years since you are Prime Minister of this country and since your administration has taken over the helm of governance in St. Lucia. After 4 years, you want to point fingers and blame the opposition for everything that has happened in the last 4 years, while you presided over the affairs of the country. The same opposition who offered help to you that you rejected, but you want to blame them for what is going on. Because some according to him, some supporter had a podcast expressing his or her view on crime. I mean, get serious. You played a clip a while ago. I didn't hear Prime Minister Holness talking about the opposition and all that kind of thing. So he addressed the issue. He addressed the problem directly. The problem is the crime and the criminals. Okay, and he said what he was going to do about it. That is what we expect from our Prime Minister. Can our Prime Minister make a forceful statement such as this on the issue of crime? We have not heard it. The question is, can he? And why can't he? You know? And if it is only when certain people perish, sir, that you can come out and make a statement, that is very suspect in itself. You know? Because at the end of the day, I mean, we talk about the number of murders, Andre. There was a 7-month-old baby. A baby at 7 months can actually survive and live. So that is a person already. Now, you can speculate and tell me everybody who got killed did something or said something or whatever. What did that baby do, Ossie, to justify that fate? Okay? You had nothing to say about it. A pregnant, 7 months pregnant woman losing her life and the life of her baby. You didn't have anything to say about that. Okay? Guess what? When Kwame dies, you can make a statement. Why? Because he's close to you. Rush is a politician like you. The lady with the 7-month-old baby was his cousin. To Rush's credit, he said something. But to his credit as well, that's not the only time he said something. Okay? It hit home. So obviously we expected him to say something, but he has spoken out otherwise on other occasions. Have you heard the representative for Castries Central say a word? Many of the crimes have taken place of late have taken place in the Prime Minister's constituency and in Richard Frederick's constituency. Have you heard a word from Richard Frederick? Now, these are the people who profess, both Richard Frederick and Philip J. who profess to know who are the players behind the scenes, who are the criminals and whatever. Philip J. said so publicly. Okay, he knows who's responsible, who's facilitating, who's doing everything. He knows. As Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, you have that information. Okay, you are best place of every St. Lucian, best place to do something about it. Yet all we have seen is an escalation, rather something being done okay, to diminish the frequency of murders that we have in St. Lucia, the gun crime that we have in St. Lucia.
But what I've always, Andre, look, you've been in the media for a long time, and you've covered many elections. And you know what always confuses me about this current Prime Minister? I watched very carefully and intently when he was in opposition back in the 2011 election. And he was among the proponents who were calling for the resignation of Richard Frederick from the cabinet of the Stephenson King-led administration. And his reasons were very clear. He said that Richard Frederick was a drug dealer. He said that Richard Frederick was
a money launderer,
and that Stephenson King knew why the U.S. Embassy had revoked the visa of Richard Frederick. He said during that campaign as well that Richard Frederick was caught in the U.S. with a briefcase full of money, and he flashed his St. Lucian diplomatic passport, and those were reasons why the United States government would have revoked the visa. It's all there on tape. It's all there in the archives of journalism, publicly covered, all these statements. So if you are aware of all of that, what is your explanation to the people of St. Lucia that you backpedal away from all of that, and then you form an alliance with Richard Frederick? So much so, the alliance is so deep that you bring him into your cabinet, not just into your cabinet, but into the innermost holy of offices, and that is the office of the Prime Minister, that Richard Frederick serves as a government minister. It puzzles me, and you know, the Prime Minister has tied his hands, Andre. He has formed an unholy alliance, and he has disqualified himself from being fit to lead this country. Of all the things that he has accused Richard Frederick of being associated with, all of the underworld criminal activity, it is very, very, very concerning to us to see how he has embraced him for political reasons, and how he
even at the expense of Dr. Anthony
to expose the entire St. Lucian public to the dangers that would come out of such an alliance. And I'm sorry, I just can't rest in saying this, but we cannot solve this problem if from the top we have such a bad example. You go further in the cabinet, and isn't the Prime Minister curious as to whether the accusations made in the RICO case about the Minister of CIP are true? But instead, he allows the Minister of CIP to flash diplomatic immunity. And he never probed. Ernest Hilaire is not exonerated from the accusations of fraud and money laundering that was filed in the RICO case. He has not been exonerated. What he has done was to use the law to not go to court by saying that they're immune diplomatically.
The privilege of diplomatic immunity.
Wayne Girard, who I ran in my constituency, I mean, this was the second attempt that Wayne Girard tried to become a candidate. I remember, legend has it on the streets of Ancillary, that Kenny Anthony, as leader of the Labour Party, refused Wayne Girard on the grounds of his association of being the CEO of the Freedom Bay Project, where hundreds of UK pensioners were promised a piece of paradise in a real estate development at the foot of the Pitons. And it never happened. But the company which Wayne Girard was the CEO of raised $40-odd million. And by raising those millions, a number of people invested their pension money. So when the Prime Minister says that he cares about pensioners, I laugh, because He knows all too well about all of these stories. And so, Andre, it's not to be personal. It is to show that we have a problem in the leadership in fighting crime. You cannot put people with dodgy characters to watch your money and to solve such important issues such as crime. This can devour our entire society if not checked. So it's not, you can't blame the police. When the Prime Minister says, oh, I wasn't a policeman, that's a cop-out. You have to show leadership. You have to first select the right people in your cabinet. You have to make sure you set an example before you come to preach to the nation about what their responsibilities are. You are obligated as the leader to set the tone and set the right signal. So I wish I could tell you, Andre, that I'm confident that this administration has the leadership and the wherewithal and is well positioned to solve the crime situation in the country, but I am not. Look at the morale of the police force. The police became one of the last public sector bodies to agree on their negotiations. And if you do some digging, you will see that the plight of a police officer, I mean, the way we treat them as a country, a police officer, while the labor code says that if somebody is working at Rev-Up, they can work a 40-hour work week. That's by law. And after that, you need to pay them overtime. Okay, that's the labor code. But there is an exemption for police officers who are working on average as much as 96 hours. Now, just imagine a human being is asked to keep all of us safe, go out there, work, but they are working 2.5 times more than we do on a weekly basis. And their pay oftentimes is less than what a lot of people make. So my information is that a police officer makes about $2,900 a month. They have had some negotiations which will increase that to about $3,200. But what the police were fighting for and trying to negotiate was a better package. And to say, look, we have duties. We need our duty allowances to be a little more. And I think it was like $520. And they were asking for it to be $900, I believe. And I think they sort of negotiated somewhere around $850 based on the information I have received. Now, $850, so they got an increase for the next 3 years of $325. But it required a fight. It required a government minister going on his talk show, attacking the president of the Police Welfare Association, calling him a flabo, saying that he was being political, went into parliament and suggested that the police were trying to bankrupt the country just by trying to negotiate for better care and working conditions and better remuneration for their people. This is not how you lead it. You don't treat the people that you rely on to help keep the country safe in that manner. The integrity and the stability of the police force is something that I believe is continuously undermined by this regime. You know, Spider, if you were asking me to restructure anything or to lead anything, you can't appoint me for 6 months. There's no way in a crime crisis you can give a Superman the job of restructuring and reorganizing and getting on top of the situations that we have now and think that person can do anything in 6 months. It's impossible.
Well,
You're just
that's a way of undermining the independence of the institution, because when you have people at your mercy, so to speak, there is no long-term fixed contract and so on. 6 months, and you have to be renewed by those same people after 6 months. You have to dance to their tune and serve at their whims and fancy. But before you came in, Dominic, I was making the point that, quite apart from the Prime Minister saying that he knows who are the people behind the criminal activities, who facilitate crime and all of that, he said so publicly that he knows. Richard Frederick has gone on public media and call names of individuals to be criminals, these are thugs, these are criminals, and so on. Given directives to the Commissioner of Police, that some of which were actually carried out live on television, on social media in St. Lucia and so on. The two of them, being part of the same ministry, the Prime Minister's office, with all the crime taking place in the Castries Basin, couldn't they come together with all the information that they have, with all the knowledge that they possess about the crime situation in this country and who are the criminals? Given the fact that you are so well placed with the levers of power in this country to do something about the crime that is taking place, not even a comment they would make. Okay, not even a comment. And it took the death of someone close to the Prime Minister for him to make a statement as Prime Minister and Minister of National Security. Richard Frederick, with all the murders that have taken place in the Castries Basin, okay, you know who killed who, you know all of those things. You have not made a statement about all those killings that are taking place. Two things.
But sorry, wouldn't you give Richard some credit then?
Credit for what?
For mentioning names and so on publicly?
No.
Without going and make formal reports
No.
to the police? Did he report the matter to the police?
Let me tell you what I give him.
Or was
the
that
label of crime facilitator? Because if you know, to the extent that you can even call names, and Richard is not you and I, he is well placed, okay? Well placed. And he has the airs of the Minister of National Security and Prime Minister. As a matter of fact, he is his spokesperson, his main spokesperson, okay? And he has done nothing about it. What credit do I have to give him for that? For being a facilitator of crime? I can't give anybody credit for that.
You know,
when you have high officials who facilitate crime, that is a dangerous thing. That's a danger to our citizenship and our country.
But if someone is, as you say, facilitating crime, why would they come out and mention certain names?
When it affects them. The reason why Richard mentioned the guys' names is because he suspected the guys were moving away from him as supporters. So he launched an attack on them. That's what he does, intimidate, expose, abuse, and bully. That's what he does.
Yeah. So you have to ask the question, Andre, are these individuals that were singled out on his show, were they known supporters of Rush Clark, his political opponent? That question is a fundamental question that needs to be asked when you're going to think of giving such an individual credit for anything. You can't do it.
I'm talking about politicizing crime, Dominic. All of a sudden, Rush Clark is a UWP candidate, and now Richard Frederick is going to speak on who killed Rush's father and all that kind of thing. You have been in government, you have been in the system for 2 terms already before now, and now you're in the system, and you'll come and say those things, cast aspersions and make allegations and so on for political reasons. That's not who is politicizing crime.
And went as far as of saying that his mother ought to have known something about his father's death. I mean, that is the most horrendous thing that one can say.
Do St. Lucians realize the level that we have gotten to? When you have people that we call honorable behaving in that manner, running a country in that way, I don't know if we realize where we are headed, but I mean, it's about time that people who matter in this country, people who are well placed in this country, people who have been given some privileges in this country, come out and speak out. Okay, and I want to hear the churches, I want to hear the Chamber of Commerce, I want to hear the law fraternity, how do you call themselves?
The Bar
Association. I want to hear the NYC. I want to hear other organizations as well. Well, we know the National Trust, cannot be trusted. So we won't even talk about them. That's, SLP arm. They only function when SLP is not in office. But it would be nice if they would do their job even when SLP is in office. This is what we have come to as a country. The SLP has literally, we spoke about the Calypso. We talk about all other organizations, trade unions and all of that have been infiltrated. Your media, Andre, infiltrated. People are being bought, sold, and controlled. That is the making that is the making of a state that is what? How would you call it? Communism? Authoritarianism? That's certainly not democracy. That's not what I know to be democracy. That's what's slowly taking place right before our very eyes. If we don't take stock now, we allow those guys to continue along their merry way as they are. Within the space of another 5 years, we would not have a voice in this country. Because all they would do, the people who dare speak, they would just destroy them, and there'll be nobody to speak out or to speak up. And that is what we must defend right now and ensure that we get rid of a government that operates in such a manner. So...
And Andre, you'll appreciate this very much because you've been in the media for a long time. And Spider made a very crucial point. On the pillar of the 3 pillars of most major democracies. Your parliament, your judiciary. But also you need a strong media to share impartial information to people so that they can make up their own minds on a range of issues. Now, the government is doing something that's very dangerous to our democracy. And what they're doing is that the fact that they know the media landscape is overly saturated. Advertising dollars have dried up significantly with the emergence of social media. And there are cheaper ways for customers to get their message out there. When you joined the business, a radio ad was a lot more expensive back in the day when you started your career than it is now. And there were fewer radio stations. Now, the government has recognized this. And what they are doing is that they are using the public purse to hold the media to ransom. So Carnival, last Carnival I heard even Stanley Lucian speak out publicly about the level of favoritism that was being dished out to certain media houses because of their close affiliation with the government. And it just appears as if if media houses speak out on crime, that they will be punished, and this will not be done without impunity. So it is sad what's taking place in the country, and we have to make sure that this happens. We need to fix this.
Yeah, but you see, the sellout that is taking place right now, it will benefit some people for the moment, but in the long run, they too will perish because, when you allow things like that to happen, especially when you know better, there's a price to pay. There's a price to pay for it. And Andrea and Dominic, I want to bring to your attention, we are speaking about homicides, okay? So a couple of weeks ago, within a space of 2 weeks, there were about a dozen. In this last week, there are about 5. But you know what we're not talking about, Andre? The number of people who are being shot but survive. We're overlooking that. That is violence in itself. That is frightening in itself. Over this last weekend, if everyone who was shot had to perish, had to die, we'll be talking more in the region of 10 murders, The week before, the few weeks before there. Because there are times when you hear 7 people are shot, 2 died. There are another 5 people who survived, who were shot, and the trend continues. You heard the Calypsonian, the soca artist Monster, was shot in Moshi. He survived, so that's not even a subject. Even a prominent person like that, Andre, we don't even speak about that, And these are the things that seem to go as if it's normal, as if, it's mango season, so mangoes bear fruit. Mango trees bear mangoes. Really? That has become normalized to the extent that the people who are directly responsible for crime fighting, crime prevention, controlling crime in this country, don't even care to make a statement. And when you do, they want to condemn you. Really? And so I asked St. Lucians to take stock of what is happening. Let's not make excuses for people. Because these are people, you see Dominic, the Honorable Alan Shastney, Guy Joseph, and Brad Lee, and all of them right now, Andre, are telling us that we have answers, we have a plan, we have a thing. So when I go out and vote, Andre, I don't vote for them to come out after elections to give me excuses. Okay? I want answers. I want solutions. And if the plan that you had does not work, I want to see you doing something, pivot quickly, do something to make it work. That's what you're paid for. That's what you're elected for. That's what I expect of you. I don't want excuses. I don't want you to blame anybody or point fingers at anybody. And that is what is happening in St. Lucia today. So if that is the best that we can have as government, we need to change the government. Simple and straight as that. Okay? I have here, Dominic, was that security concerns in the Rodney Bay, Groseille, and surrounding areas. Now that here comes from the St. Lucia Hotel and Tourism Association. That's a letter that was written back in February, highlighting the crime situation. Because see, again, Andre, I keep saying, even you that is in the media have no clue how prevalent crime is in St. Lucia. Because what? They beat up a tourist, take his gold and his phone and his... You're not going to hear about that. But that has serious implications for us as a tourist destination. With social media, that one tourist can put out his experience, his ordeal, and reach 1,000 people. Okay? That can significantly put a damper on the number of tourists who will be willing to come here. That can determine whether an advisory can be issued against us here in St. Lucia and so on. And those of us who do business in the tourist industry, those of us who work in the tourist industry, those of us who depend on tourism, whether in the ancillary things like taxis and restaurants and so on, we are going to pay a price economically. Okay? So it is not an overnight thing. Now, the thing about it is, unfortunately, they wrote that letter and that was it. They are not forceful. They are not as vociferous as they should be. But the government must be made to understand it is a responsibility and you have to live up to that responsibility. Okay, you don't have answers. But if you genuinely do not have answers, which should not be the case because you made people believe that you had the answers, that's why you were voted into office. But if you come in to confess now that you don't have the answers and you're being provided with assistance, for heaven's sake, put your pride and your parties and political considerations aside and take the advice, you know. Andre, I think we'll probably open the line now. Because I hardly ever allow anybody to come here and not to face
This is a very damning letter penned by the CEO of the Hotels Association to the Police Commissioner, Vern Gard. Mm-hmm. And the letter says that the hotels are very concerned about an alarming increase in crimes targeting visitors, including armed robberies, theft, and assaults. It goes that these incidents not only create personal distress, but also pose a direct threat to St. Louis's reputation. Mm-hmm. Now, what has been happening over the years is that people within the tourism industry, as you open up the lines, have been trying to sweep incidents against tourists under the carpet. Mm-hmm. Tourism officials, both in the public sector and in the private sector. And the view is that if this information gets out to the international press, the significant damage that it would cause to your economy, to the reputation of your destination, and how that would have such a spiraling negative impact on the economic fortunes of St. Lucia. So this problem is a lot more than is reported. And that you see more on the news. This is more or less cover-up. You would recall quite recently an executive of the Tourism Authority actually had suggested to the media, there was a letter which was leaked, where they suggested to the media to
they should not report,
shouldn't report on a certain incident because of the damage that it would cause. But again, it just goes to show you how significant this crime situation is. This is a crisis that if we don't get hold of this, not only are we losing lives, but it threatens businesses. Already, Spider, we see that there are parts of our country that people have abandoned, that people don't build houses there anymore. Businesses are closed in some of these areas. People who are trying to off-sell buildings can't sell them after trying for many years. Houses which are in certain areas. So we see that the people of St. Lucia are already taking action in terms of their own perception of certain areas in our country.
Yeah, and our Prime Minister's response to that is crime has been happening for years. So I guess that is justification for him to come and make it worse. That's my interpretation. That's what he's telling us. Because what are you talking about? Crime has been taking place for years.
He has just failed to lead on crime. He has just failed, Andre, to be a protecting chief on crime. He has not handled this well at all. He has never ever seemed like a prime minister who wasn't on top of the crime situation. He behaves like a man who's compromised, whose hands are tied.
Yeah, but here's someone who says that if you can finger any of his ministers who are involved in any criminal activity or corruption and so on, you deal with it. Whereas when his ministers are fingered, he does nothing about it. And in fact, his ministers get out of situations by claiming, like Dominic told you, diplomatic immunity. And of course, if you have nothing to hide, Andre, why invoke diplomatic immunity? Prove to the world that you're innocent rather than run away from the issue by invoking diplomatic immunity. But Dominic, before we go to the lines, I have a few announcements that I have to read out that I will not be forgiven for if I don't. And I was told that where we're hosting the program, where Andre is bringing me, is part of the Castries North constituency. So I have to start by reading 2 ads for the Castries North constituency. So there is a community meeting which with Stephen Favre on Thursday. Stephen Favre is the UWB candidate, endorsed UWB candidate for Castries North, on Thursday the 24th of July at 5:30 to 7 p.m. And you are invited to meet with the endorsed candidate for Castries North. That's the UWP endorsed candidate, Stephen Favre. And that is taking place at Chase Gardens, Carolee HRDC. That's one. There's also a community night that is taking place in Cicero. Okay, so Castries South constituency branch is inviting you to a community night. Join them for an unforgettable evening of fun, fine dining, and live entertainment on July 26 at 7 p.m. at the Cicero Secondary School. Tickets cost $50. Babono. The Babono constituency branch and the National Women's Arm invite you to an event scheduled for Sunday the 27th July 2025. It will start with a church service at the Babono Good Shepherd Church, Catholic Church, at 8 a.m. There will be a mass canvassing event afterwards at 1:30, and this week's Flabo Sunday Live will be taking place in Babono from 6 p.m. Castries North again. It's called Castries North Vibes and Unity Ballarama on the 27th, that's Sunday the 27th July 2025. The location is the college playing field at VG. Time 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. All Castries North communities are invited. That is La Clery, Chase Gardens, Vidboutai, Bize, Carolee Pavilion, parts of Mondudon, Agad, and parts of Bocage. There'll be a grand prize of $5,000 cash for the winning team. Come for the vibes. Okay, and that is sponsored by Stephen Favre, the endorsed candidate for Castries North. The final one I have to read, and I must read this one. This one is an invitation to become a member of United Youth. That's the United Workers' Party Youth Arm. So they are asking you here to join the movement and be a voice for change and opportunity in your community. Become a member today. Register now. And there's an email address which is unitedyouth758@gmail.com. So you can, become a member of United Youth. I think I have read all my ads now, so I've cleared myself. Let's have some calls, Andre.
Do you think you should take some calls? It's 10 minutes to 11 already. It's up to you. I can take
Andre
calls.
is the greatest timekeeper in the world.
Yeah, let's take a couple calls.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just give the numbers. The fixed line is 572-9710. Fixed line 572-9710. Or you can WhatsApp 287-0971. WhatsApp is 287-0971. You have a call.
Yes.
You will need your
Good morning, Spider.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to Meet the Opposition.
Andre, you're special, You are very, very special. I won't say why you are special because you know why you're special. But you are a very, very special man. I'll give you that.
Thank you.
I'll give you that. I've been listening to you guys, and honestly, it touched my heart. A number of things, and I've been really holding back over the last few days. But when you mentioned about the victims, the non-fatal victims of shootings in this country, how we have basically just overlooked them. It's almost as if they're invisible. It touched my heart because this is one of the things over the weekend. I was speaking with a core group of people, and I mentioned to them, I said, there are invisible victims of crimes in this country. They're invisible because we do not pay them any mind. Well, you survived the shootings, so, it's okay. It's almost as if since it's not as sensational as a homicide, I expected for how vociferous the Calypso confraternity was this season. I expected to hear a large hue and cry from the shooting of Munster. I expected to hear the orange economy, those persons in the orange economy, to make a big deal out of it. And we've heard nothing. All we saw was the steps to the Bamba Mall. And I applaud whomever decided to put the steps for the Bamba Mall, because you were thinking, as salacious as the Bamba Mall is, the safety of the women who go on the Bamba Mall. Okay, so I applaud you for that. But really, seriously, there was a man I understood who was stabbed over the festivities as a result of an innocent, or maybe not so innocent, wine on a woman that wasn't his. You understand? That's what I hear, Power Bolawi. And we don't speak about those things. We don't speak about those things. We only speak about the murders. We speak about...
We hardly do nowadays.
Exactly. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that really irked me is the fact that our ministers, we have so many ministers in crime, and they are not speaking. When I woke up on Sunday morning and I got the gut-wrenching news of yet another murder in the city, another life stolen, another family shattered. No matter what the person's past is, the person is somebody's son. 2 people, in fact. He belongs to 2 people. He must have had a family. He belonged to a community. And that community is now holding their breath in fear because of the number of crime that has taken place over the last few days, And yet again, we have not heard anything from the Prime Minister except for the last one. We heard no press briefing, no statement, not even a tweet from the Prime Minister until this last murder. And then now Alison Jean has added a voice. I thought that woman was suffering from laryngitis because I've never heard her say anything, considering she herself lost her son to violence. And we ask ourselves, like you've been asking today, what makes this victim different? Why did it take this particular death to finally break the Prime Minister's silence? Because many have died before. Many mothers have wailed and cried. As a matter of fact, mothers are dying with their children unborn. Many bloodstains have dried on our streets, and the silence is deafening. And this is the same Prime Minister who boasts about being the most readied and the most informed. The one who supposedly knows everything and anything happening in the world of crime. And so I say to Mr. God, you need to haul the Prime Minister down to your office.
Okay, caller. We don't have much time, but I must say I welcome your contribution, and I'll expose you now. That was Laura Jean-Pierre Noel, the endorsed candidate for the United Workers' Party for Lab Resultibus, with a very good contribution here. Thank you, Laura, for calling in and making your contribution.
Next call.
Yeah, we do have another caller. Please go ahead, please. We don't have much time left to try to make it brief.
I'll give you 10 minutes more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah?
Yes.
Good morning, Mr. Andrew Potter.
Good morning.
I have something to say there about the carnival. I know you don't have too much time. Let me tell you, I didn't say the people do have to enjoy themselves. They have to enjoy themselves. But you see the way they dress in, they're not looking nice. They're not looking nice. Don't tell me you have a wife or you have a woman and you enjoy yourself, like you dress like that, and you have a girl. Especially, look at what happened. Look at how people killing. You know, it not looking nice. If it's you, a woman, you have a respect for yourself. You have a respect for your man. You have respect for your children, your family, and like that you dress. It's not good with me. It's not good. I don't know who would take responsibility for that. But you see, that government not doing that because carnival before it was carnival. Now you see carnival now is not carnival. Bacchanal that naked. So I call it because you have a choice to enjoy yourself, but not like that. No, any woman or any man that want to dress like that, to want a woman like one on your woman, or man want to wine on a damn woman like that naked like that. No. You can enjoy yourself, but you can dress yourself. It's respect. That means that's respect for your family and respect for your husband. It's not good.
Thank you, caller. The caller has a problem with the way people dress during carnival. Well, that will be for another show, really, if we have to comment and elaborate on that. Do you have another caller?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we have another caller. Please go ahead and make a contribution. Welcome to Meet the Opposition.
Morning, Andre.
Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Spider.
Good morning.
Morning, Dominic.
Morning.
Andre, be careful what is said on your radio station. You have a radio to protect. Be careful what is said. Especially Mr. Dominic Fady. On September 12, 2017, September 12, you can go and look at it, at the House of Assembly, Leon Theodore John was the speaker at the time. When Mr. Dominic Fady was reading from a paper, Dr. Anthony said, make it a document of the House. When he presented that paper, what he said was not on it. I heard Mr. Dominic Fady on your radio this morning speaking about how somebody had, I don't want to mention name, had drugs in a suitcase and it's on some paper. Ask him to bring the evidence. The other thing...
hold on, caller. Dominic said there's somebody with drugs in a suitcase?
Yes, he mentioned that. He mentioned something about that. It's on some document.
Let her finish.
He did mention that.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The other thing again, Mr. Chico was on your radio station sometime in June. He said the scanners in his time was destroyed. And now I'm hearing the scanners was destroyed in the time of Mr. Philip J. Pierre. Be careful of that. The other thing is on...
So, hold on, caller.
Yes.
What is wrong with that statement?
Yeah, you saying that the scanner was in up to last night, Mr. Chico said it was done in his time.
Yes, so what's wrong with the statement? In his time
it was done as deputy commissioner.
Chico served under the Labour Party administration, so what's wrong with the statement?
No, he said in the time of the UWP, the scanner,
he said in the time of the UWP?
Yes, he said so.
He did not say the scanners were destroyed in the time of the UWP.
Yes,
he said he said in his time. Now you're changing it to say
no. The time of the UWP when he served.
Okay, so what did he say? Hold on. What did he say? What did he say in his time or in the time of the UWP?
That somebody put water in the scanners. It was not in Labour time.
The question I'm asking you, listen to the question and answer the question. Mm-hmm. Did he say the scanner was destroyed in the time of the UWP, or did he say the scanner was destroyed in his time?
In the time of UWP when he served as Assistant Controller of Customs.
That's what he said?
Yes, he said so. So be careful of that.
Okay.
The other thing...
I will verify that statement.
You must verify that because I hear you insist on saying it's in the Labour time the scanner was destroyed. He said so last night and he said so in June.
Well, let me tell you what I am saying. And hear me well. The scanner was destroyed during the time of the Labour Party.
No.
You heard me?
No. It was destroyed when...
I'm telling you what I'm saying. You tell me no?
I'm telling you no. He said so. The last thing I want to say, Mr. Philip J. Pierre, when the crime was being done in 2017, are you listening to me?
Loud and clear, caller.
Right. In 2017, Philip J. Pierre, when all the crime, we started the crime, there was 60 homicides, 60 plus homicide between 2016 and 2017. Philip J. Pierre was the one who called for a crime symposium. Mr. Hermangill Francis was the security minister at the time. He welcomed that. Everybody was involved. Opposition. You know what, your leader, the prime minister of the country, was never present. I don't know where he went, but he was never present. And
so what's your point?
Mr. Hermangill Francis was the one, he was the minister for crime at the time.
And he wasn't present
the
either?
idea, and everything was done. And
Was he
nothing
present? Was Hermangill Francis present?
Hermangill Francis was present.
So what's your point?
But the crime rate
He represented the
very
government
high.
as Minister of National Security.
Yes, beg your pardon?
He represented the UWP as Minister of National Security.
Oh, so
He
where
had to
was
be
your
there, and he
point?
was there.
You
So
know,
I don't get your point.
Mr.
Anyway,
Spider,
please
Mr. Spider, one more
wrap up,
thing.
please.
One more thing. You know, the Mr. Chasney never addressed the nation on crime during his time when all the crime was being done. And he said, Kenny Anthony cannot stop the crime. He will. He never. There's no tape. You can go and look at it. There's no tape addressing the nation on crime. He went to Bruceville. The people chased him because but now you come in.
Okay.
Now you come in.
All right, caller, you've made your point.
Now you come in. So be careful, Andre.
Okay,
when
thank you
people
very
come
much.
on your radio station with all their lives.
Andre's being careful.
Okay.
Don't worry
Thank
about
you.
it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right,
Yes,
so
Dominic, you're
so-
accused to make a response.
yeah, so I thank the caller for her submission. I don't agree with everything that she has said. Number one, what I said earlier, Andre, is that there, and if the caller wish to go look at the record,
Yeah, it's on record.
is that there has been a litany of Labour Party accusations when Richard Frederick had his visa revoked. Now, she didn't want to call the name, I don't know why. But I said Richard Frederick, when his visa was revoked, and all of St. Lucia knows this to be factual, was that he was accused by his present Labour comrades, including the now Prime Minister, Philip J. Pierre, for being accosted by an FBI official in the United States with a suitcase of money. This was rumored back
That's
then.
what I
and
heard you say.
And it is coverage. I
Drugs.
never mentioned anything about
drugs.
a suitcase of drugs, so the caller is totally unfactual. But who said that he was the most frightening thing to have happened to politics?
Dr. Anthony.
Who said that Richard Frederick is a drug dealer? Who said
Liberty.
that he's a money launderer? Who said that he should never ever be part of the politics of St. Lucia? It's all there. These are all things that the current Labour Party administration said about Richard Frederick. It's very unfortunate that the caller is trying to come up with solutions for the crime situation. In fact, she offered no solutions. And what she attempted to do was to make political comparisons. Andre, I will be the first to admit if the United Workers' Party at any point did have some weak areas, were we perfect in our response to crime? No. But we were far better, and I stand proudly by the cabinet that we were in, and we responded far better. It doesn't matter who called for the crime symposium. I don't know if those facts are correct. But I know that when Hermangill Francis...
No, what she's saying is that the current leader of the opposition was not present.
He didn't have to be present.
No,
His
I'm
government
just
was
telling you
represented.
what she said.
If Pierre is not present as Minister of National Security, that's an issue. But the Prime Minister doesn't have to be present at any and everything if he has ministers who are lead ministers on the issue. And
but Andre, then we're looking in the rearview mirror. What's important now?
Exactly. Is the records that we are setting
what the
on
Prime
the
Minister has done in the last 4 years. I know that Alan Chasney, every single week, met with the police commissioner, got a brief on crime, came to cabinet, identified challenges, and was certainly far more aggressive. Went out to our diplomatic friends to try to mobilize resources, try to get foreign help.
Say Dominic, he opened up the forensic lab. These are the things that have to be mentioned. He opened up the forensic lab, provided the Coast Guard with boats when they had boats that were not working, got them to work. He started the border control, put CCTV cameras,
more than anybody else,
put the K9 unit in place. All of those measures were measures to fight crime, and I suspect that is why we didn't have the records that we have now, because of those measures. So all we are saying is take an example from that and do the same and even do better. You know,
and I would want to invite the caller to go look at Alan Chasney's public utterances on crime. It was never trying to pander to criminal elements in the country. It was never that. It didn't take him 4 years to say that we have a zero tolerance on crime. He never passed the buck to the police. We always accepted responsibility.
Or point finger at the opposition.
Or point finger at the opposition.
Yeah.
No, we led from the front, and this government is not leading from the front. What they are doing is that they have been very weak on crime. It was Alan Chasney who, for example, got the U.S. to resume training with some police departments as a result of the sanctions on us with impacts. And the resumption of that training came about because of the leadership shown by Herman Gill Francis and Alan Chasney. So I'm very proud of our record. And if the caller look at the press, she can see very, very clearly all the records are there to show the tremendous effort of the previous United Workers' Party administration.
You have another caller.
Yes, good morning, caller. Welcome to Meet the Opposition. Go ahead and make a contribution. Please try to be as brief as you can.
Good morning, Andre, and good morning, Mr. Spider Montoute, and good morning, my other brother, Mr. Dominic Feedy. This is Ian Cauldron, the PRO for the New York Flabo Caucus. I listened to the last caller. She's very delusional, and I will not waste time with her on crime. The difference between the Labour Party and the UWP is night and day when it comes to the crime fighting.
The figures are there to show.
And the figures, statistics don't lie. The figures are there. Heritage is that you have a government, an opposition leader, who is responsible enough, because this prime minister says that once you talk about crime or you report on crime, you politicizing crime. The UWPs and its surrogates like to rejoice on crime when there's a criminal activity. No, that is far from the truth. The heritage is that you have a leader of the opposition in Alan Chasney who saw it necessary to say to this Labour Party government, let us come together. Crime, there's no boundary for criminal activity. The criminals, when they have to do the criminal acts, they don't see you as Labour or UWP. Let us come together. He wrote the Prime Minister as in his capacity as leader of the opposition, gave recommendations or solutions or suggestions, and said to the Prime Minister, let us have a sit down, the opposition and the government, to come to have some kind of dialogue so that we can fight this criminal crime situation collectively as a people. What did Philippe did? He said he put it in the trash, in the garbage. When you look at, I find it passing strange why all these murders occurred under Philippe, who is the National Security Minister. He never came out and made one statement. But he was miraculously, because a close associate, Kwame, of his, was murdered on Sunday, he miraculously made a statement and he was on the crime scene. So what about all those persons who got murdered, Andre? Have you ever seen the Prime Minister make himself present on the crime scene? What is so special about this Kwame individual? We want to know.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. So the UWP government, this is what the UWP government did. The forensic lab that the Labour Party left closed for years, the UWP reopened the forensic lab. All the CCTV cameras all over the place, it was the UWP. The legislation that was strengthened to deter criminals from the criminal acts, it was the UWP. And let me say this. When the Labour Party came into office, you remember the COVID violations? Persons like Christopher Hunt, they were charged for the COVID violations. What did this Prime Minister do? He expunged all those charges. So what signal are you sending to the criminal elements? That it's okay to do crime. That is a signal you're sending out to them. So I'm just saying, crime has no boundaries, but I'm saying this Labour Party government, inclusive of Philippe, they're not ready yet to fight crime. They are not ready because I'm not seeing anything of note. All governments, Andre, give the police equipment, give the police vehicles. All governments do that. That is routine. But I want a leader who can speak forcefully and serious about the crime situation. Just suppose that today the leader of the Prime Minister of Jamaica, who spoke to his country as a leader, a man who is a commander-in-chief. We're not getting that from Philippi as a leader. And I'm just saying to St. Lucians are now fearful for their lives. They're not feeling safe. But better days are coming. Change is coming. Just hold on. The UWP will come in and will rescue this country. They have a plan. And I listened to Brother Peter Chico, and I was very impressed with him last night. He tells me that he was prepared for this thing, and I'm urging the people of Castries East, give Peter Chico an opportunity to change Castries East once and for all. And
all right, thank you, caller.
Lastly, I want to say quickly, Mr. Montoute, just give me a chance here. I'm putting in a plug here that the New York Flagpole Caucus, we have in our annual Labor Day barbecue. It's on Saturday, August the 30th. And as time permits, I will give you more information. But it's on the New York Flagpole Caucus. Our annual Labor Day barbecue is this coming. It's Saturday, August the 30th. And I'll keep members of the public up to date insofar as the activities and what plans ahead.
Okay,
thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Final call.
Yeah, just before I get that final call, one more ad. X for Flex Women's Arm has a river bash in PI near the PI Bridge, and that is taking place from 10 a.m. onwards. Tickets are on sale for $20. That is on Friday, August the 1st, 2025.
After the last call, I'll allow you to repeat some of your announcements.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, caller, welcome to Meet the Opposition. Go ahead and make a contribution. Like again, I'm going to ask you to make it brief because we're coming to the end.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
How's everybody doing today?
Doing
well.
fine.
Very good.
All right, great. I'm not going to be long. I'm not going to be brief. I think when we speak, I don't want to go into this politically. I just want to look at it culturally and cross-culturally as well, because crime is something that's really big in our country, and we need to look at it. But one of the things we're missing when we speak about crime, when we look at the numbers, we're not realizing that much all the crime that's been done is young men. And if we look at cross-culturally, young men are in a crisis. Young men are in a crisis on an educational level. Young men are in a crisis on an economic level. Young men are in a crisis on a physical health level, mental health level. So if you look at the election in America, you would realize that majority of the Democrats was feminine-driven. Feminism, the feminine ideology. And Trump came in very nicely with a strong masculine message. So I'm asking, can we psychoanalyze the political landscape in a way where we can address those issues down in St. Lucia on a cultural level? Because it's happening all over the world. There is a system of ideas that are strictly destroying our young men. Our young men are turning their back on institutions. They're turning their backs on participating in society, going into a higher education. They're turning their backs on all those things because they feel disenfranchised, because they're not being taken care of. So what is it that the UWP can do on a cultural, a higher level, other than just politically bantering about things, and look at the development of our young men? Because they are the ones dying in crime. They are the ones committing crime. They are the ones not going to school. They are the ones not doing those things. So what is your plan for young men, UWP? If you can do that, if you can give a proper, comprehensive plan for the young men in the society, you have won this election. And I'm telling you that straight.
All right, caller, unfortunately you asked the question at the end of the show, but we'll have enough time for that to be articulated by the spokesperson on youth and gender from the United Workers' Party. Thanks for your contribution. But before we end, I just want to go through our ads that we put out earlier on.
No, but I think it's a very crucial point that the caller has
but
raised.
at this juncture, Dominic, we have come to the end of the show.
Andre has already given us extra time.
Exactly.
Yes.
So,
and I also have a question before we end.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, let me repeat that there's a community meeting with Stephen Favre on Thursday, the 24th of July, from 5:30 to 7 p.m. and that will be taking place at the Chase Garden, Carrelli HRDC. There'll also be a community night in Castries South, hosted by the Castries South constituency branch. That is on July 26th at 7 p.m. where there'll be lots of fun, entertainment, dining, and so on. That is taking place at the Cicero Secondary School. Tickets are $50. On Sunday, We have a whole day of activities in Babono, which starts with a church service at 8 a.m. at the Babono Good Shepherd Catholic Church. At 1:30, there will be a mass canvassing taking place in the constituency. And at 6 p.m., we'll have the Flambeau Sunday Live taking place in Babono. That is coming Sunday. On Castries North now, another event on Sunday the 27th July 2025, a Balorama taking place at the college playing field from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And teams in the Castries North Basin are invited to participate. There will be a grand prize of $5,000 sponsored by Stephen Favre. The women's arm X for Flex women's arm will be having a river bash that is near the PI Bridge River on Friday the 1st of August 2025. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, I must inform you that after a 2 weeks absence, we will be having on Monday the return of Like It Is on Hot 7 TV, and our guest will be the endorsed candidate for the United Workers' Party for the constituency of Babono, Titus Preville. He will be on. Do not miss this. So, Dominic, I will give you 2 seconds to wrap up for us.
And then I have a question.
Well, before Dominic asks your question.
Okay, here's the question. All right. I'd like to know why it seems to me that politicians have a hard time forgiving, right? Stuff that happened in the past. It happens on both sides of the aisle, right? You have a situation where, for example, Mr. Neville Snack. I mean, up to now, the Labour Party has not forgiven him, as far as I can tell, for crossing the floor and this, the whole history. Right. And we could go on and on and on with these hurts that took place many, many, many years ago. Now, true, I did hear the Prime Minister make a lot of statements concerning Richard Frederick, etc., etc. I'm just curious to know, isn't there room in the politics, right, for forgiveness and moving on and, letting bygones be bygones, that sort of thing? Why is it so difficult? Because you hear these things coming up all the time about what happened back then and so on.
But you see, it's not...
let me ask the question. Yeah. So I want to know whether in the politics there is room for forgiveness and moving on. Because couldn't it be, I'm just asking, couldn't it be that whatever was said there about Richard and, Dr. Kenny Anthony and whatever, that they probably spoke and they forgave each other and they have moved on? I'm just asking, isn't there room in the politics for forgiveness?
So, if that has taken place, Andre, then the Prime Minister needs to come out and to explain to people why the big pivot towards sanitizing Richard Frederick.
Okay.
And we are in a crime crisis, and it becomes extremely relevant to our national development if Richard Frederick is as bad as they said that he was all these years. As far as we know, they have not changed from that position. They have not said anything publicly to say, well, back in the day, when we said that Richard Frederick was a drug dealer, and when we said that Richard Frederick was a money launderer, and when we said that Richard Frederick was not fit enough to be in office, that we have changed from that position. They haven't said that. And so therefore, as far as we are aware, they still feel that way. So if you feel that way about him, why include him in the highest offices of the land? Why are you empowering him to have such control over the levers of power to continue to undermine the various initiatives to take this country forward? And this is the issue. I mean, in our party as well, some of our people hate when we speak about Richard Frederick, and I mean, it's not that it is important to speak about such a character if he's going to be at the center of government.
Okay,
Andrew. Well,
does that satisfy you?
Since Dominic's answer was so comprehensive,
yes,
I'll just briefly say this. You asked whether there's a place for forgiveness and so on. I will answer you by saying as much as there is a place for repentance and atonement. Okay? When that happens, because even God to get forgiveness from God, you must repent. Okay? So that's all I'll say for that on that. But, Andre, we want to thank all our listeners, our viewers, our callers, and we want to thank you, Dominic, for coming in.
And thank me for the extra time.
And Andre, thanks a lot for the extra time. And, of course, for playing the role, like, I don't want to say devil's advocate, the word devil sounds negative, but you always act as a counterbalance. And I appreciate that, and that adds a lot to our show.
Thank you.
I know our listeners appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Spider Montoute. Yeah. And you as well, Dominic?
Thank you, Andre. Pleasure to be here. Always a pleasure to hear your honest views. And I want to thank all the callers. I want to thank the listeners for listening. And thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, Dominic Fede. And this has been Meet the Opposition, heard and seen on Rev-Up St. Lucia every Thursday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. So until next week, Thursday, have yourself a great day. We have Kina coming on next. She'll be with you until 3 this afternoon. From 3 o'clock, Zen the DJ until 6. Andre Paul wishing you a great day. So long.